And we're ready whenever you are, Mayor.
Okay. I'm all set.
You are all set.
Good evening and thank you for remotely attending tonight's city council meeting. The camera in the council chambers is set up to show those attending in person tonight. The platform we are using has a raise hand feature. You will notice a picture of a hand in the upper right hand corner. When we reach the point in the meeting where the public has the opportunity to address council, you can click the button and be given your opportunity to address council. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Skelly,
Here.
Counselor Dilaba,
Here.
Counselor Fisher,
Here.
Counselor Kennedy, here. Counselor Powers,
Here.
Counselor Reish,
Here.
Counselor Scamperly,
Here.
quorum present.
Thank you. We have one presentation tonight, and it will be from Director of Planning and Development, Andrea Smith, regarding the Ready Project.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Out of respect for the agenda, which is a bit lengthy this evening, I'm going to just focus this very brief presentation on the Maple City Trail portion of the city's Ready Grant, which you do have a resolution on later in the evening. So this is mostly just an update for you. We have submitted all of our permits to the state agencies through the joint application permit process. We have started hearing back from the state agencies, and we have sent it on to the Army Corps of Engineers. We are about at 90% complete engineering for the project. And we are at a point with the engineers' estimates that we can submit to New York State for our grant disbursement agreement. However, before we're able to get a grant disbursement agreement, we do have to agree to pay not only our share, but in this case, the additional costs that have been estimated by the engineers in order for the state to allow us to move to the next step. So I just wanted to take a couple minutes to recap some of the discussions that we've had over the last 12 plus months with regard to the Maple City Trail project. So very briefly, I'm sure you're all very familiar with the damage that we have at the Maple City Trail that started in 2014 from flooding events in 2014, again in 17 and in 19. The engineering for this project specifically had presented three conceptual designs. One is the replacement of the full 1,500 lineal feet of wall with like wall, essentially a one-to-one replacement. There was a proposal to do a smaller portion of wall and then a third concept that removed all of the wall and then the entire shoreline would be riprap. All three of those concepts had dollars amount associated with them, and both this council and the previous council had expressed the desire to pursue both options with walls and not the riprap or large boulders along the shoreline, because that as a concept restricts access to the water and was less desirable. So that concept as an option was put forward to council, but it was not pursued in terms of doing extensive design and engineering, although that was the most cost-effective option. At this point in time, the council has opted to pursue what's referred to as 1B, which is replacing 1,500 lineal feet of wall. We will be increasing the grade up to 2 feet in some portions along the Maple City Trail. And based on the current estimates, which are from May of 2021, the budget for that project is $3.2 million. The Ready Award is for $1.9 million, and the city's minimum cost share for that project is 5% of that, which is $100,000 for a total Ready project of $2 million. So this project does have a significant financial gap, And that is why the resolution this evening has been put together by our comptroller's office to go through how to fund that gap. Now, it is conceivable that that gap could be less. It could also be slightly more based on what the bids come back at when the project goes to bid. At this point in time, should the council choose to move forward, we would be looking at putting this out to bid in the February timeframe for construction in 2022. So that completes my portion of the presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions that y'all might have in advance of the actual item for action this evening.
I'm excited about that project. You know, it's going to be great to see it back, the river shoreline back in good shape, and the trail back in shape. And I'm glad for it going ahead. Anyone else?
Yes, thank you. So out of the funding that the city has to provide, can a portion of that be in-kind services? For example, if our DPW wanted to do a lot of the demolition or things like that, if I'm not mistaken, some of that can be in-kind?
It can, and that is something that the city has discussed several times back and forth. Although at this time, we don't anticipate having adequate manpower within our DPW to be able to do sufficient in-kind work to reduce our cost share and still allow them to complete the necessary work that we have to complete in a short construction season. But it is an option. There are other communities that have used that, but that is not something that we are pursuing at this time.
And so is this bid going to go out to one contractor alone, or is it going to be subbed out in portions? Do you know?
We will put this together as a prime contractor. They may have multiple subs. That would depend on, they'll have to put that together.
Okay. Assuming we pass everything tonight, when do we expect to put that bid up?
I would recommend first making sure that we have a contract with the state for the funding, which again, we don't presently have. That is what we would have through the grant disbursement agreement. But if everything moves forward this evening with the support of council, I would expect that we would put this project out to bid in February. We would probably look at a 6-week bid process, and then so we would open them in early April, probably.
Okay.
Around that time frame.
Excellent. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Is this the monies that's missing for the trail where the wall fell in? Isn't it tied to the dock area also, as far as the Ready project?
No, the Maple City Trail and Seawall is its own project. It has its own project number.
Well, where I'm going with it is, aren't we going to have to do the same thing for down in the
Yes,
Greenbelt?
we will, but they are looked at as separate projects. We have separate contracts with the state of New York, and so this one is further ahead.
But can't we bond for both of them at the same time? And
Yes.
then,
The resolution tonight will not commit you to bonding. It expresses the council's intent to bond, I think is the language that's used. Should the bids come back favorably, and that's where you go.
And Councilor Fisher, what we'd look to do is we would do a ban. So we would do an anticipation note, likely for that project, likely we do one for this project and anything else we want to do. At the conclusion of those, then we would roll those into a bond. So to answer your ultimate question, it would ultimately get wrapped into the same one. But to keep them separate for accounting purposes and really for execution, we're obviously farther ahead on this. It'll be separate anticipation notes, so temporary financing, let's call it. And then when the projects are all said and done, we'd wrap them into one long-term bond.
okay, so we could conceivably just pay for it.
Conceivably. I mean, again, I think what's key in her presentation here is, and I think we talked about this before, we're going through the steps. We need to get this to bid. If the gap is 1.3, I'm confident between Angela and I and Andrea will come back with solutions and the way forward. If the bids come back and our gap is $2 or $3 or $4 million, then I don't know. We need to find out for sure what the numbers are. And we've had some, we've had good success this year with our bids. We've had costs lower than anticipated. So I think part of Andrea's strategy here is get this out early, be on the contractor's early dockets. We can get the most competition before everybody's got a full plate of work and maybe we see a lower price.
I'd just like to see less debt. You know what I mean? If we can break it in half or whatever, I'd just as soon see using money.
Absolutely.
Didn't we go out to, I thought we discussed both of these projects and decided to go out and get prices so we would understand the prices so that we can make a decision on where we wanted to go.
And that's where we are now. To be able to get to the bid process, we've got to get the agreement signed, et cetera, et cetera. So that's where we're going. This is really council saying we're committed to doing it. They're not saying you have to do it. Again, we get the bids back, or Andrea gets the agreement signed with the state, we get the bids back and the city just can't do it, then we can't do it. Now, I will say, again, and I want to talk about this with real numbers. I hate using the speculative numbers and not discrediting the engineer's work. I'm just saying the market has been fairly volatile. We all know that in this area. I want to get real numbers so we can give you real courses of action and tell you where we are in time. Fairly soon, we'll have the closeout of the 2021 budget, which we'll have a better understanding of what additional money may be available in the fund balance. So I think it's just going to be easier for us to give you those scenarios. We're also getting closer on the Maple City Trail project, which will, again, bring you to the same point so we can get real numbers returned on that. So I think it's just continuing to refine it. Keeping in mind, council, at the end of the day, we have investment in this already to the tune of 700 overall. Just on this project alone. Is our current money in. So we're about 170 into this already. So if we opt out of it, we've got expenses that are going to have to be paid. So again, this is the next step to get us to the next level so we can get the bids out. The state has asked us, we initially sent correspondence to the state that said, hey, we're ready to go forward. We want to do it. But they really want to see something where council is understanding what they're up against. Again, this is not the final commitment. You're not authorizing us to execute the project. We just need to keep moving.
And what's the estimated cost overrunning for the Morissette part of Ready?
And I just in rough terms, council, right now we're probably give or take about even. Keeping in mind that doesn't include any improvements. That involves tearing the place up, doing the dirt work, doing the mandatories. But we've got some other information. We're just trying to refine on that a little bit more. Council asked for, a definitive no BS what things could come out of the project. I think Andrew is close with that list, and we'll be able to brief the next meeting the things that you could in fact opt out of. But I want to make sure we're exact on that. I want to make sure we have not so much the good numbers. I just want to make sure the authorization is there, and then we're prepared to tell you what the pros and cons are of deleting anything that is involved in that project. So,
So the total to bond is for all three phases, correct? The Ready project?
well, the total tonight, for the bond anticipation note would be what we believe will do this project alone, just this.
Just the
Maple City Trail.
Yeah.
But there are three phases to the Ready, correct?
Well, we had 4 total projects. We ultimately have consolidated 3 into 1, which is just call it Morissette Park, the Greenbelt area.
The whole little park all the way down through.
And then the Maple City Trail.
Right, Caroline Street. Yes. And that's 500,000 to bond for all of it? No. Right.
So the resolution tonight is just with regard to the Maple City Trail and Seawall project.
At the confluence of the St. Lawrence River.
Exactly.
What's the cost overrun for the Maple City Trail? I guess we're building a new bridge across the Oswegatchie. What's the cost overrun for that? I'm just trying to understand. We got like 3 huge projects going on. We're being asked to.
I'm sorry, did you say building a bridge?
The
Did I?
bridge.
We're talking about the trails. So I don't,
Oh, that's a totally different project.
Yeah.
This
Yeah, I know.
project is just the seawall from the dam to the pedestrian bridge, essentially, the Maple City Trail pedestrian bridge. That's the area that was damaged. That's what we're addressing
Washed out,
already.
it all washed out a
Right.
couple years back.
Right.
I'm sorry, but I'm just trying to understand all 3 projects and their impact on the city because we're being asked to vote on one tonight. That's why I'm asking these questions.
I did not bring those project numbers with me this evening, Counselor.
yeah, and I don't think, Andrew, just roughly, was that project ever what was our expected outlay for that Maple Street Trail project, the
But-
expansion?
The city's cost share was roughly 250,000 out of it's north of $2 million project, which is received federal funds. I'll be happy to get those numbers to you. I don't have them this evening, so I don't.
But at the moment, we don't
Incorrectly.
have a big belief that it's going significantly over that. I mean, we're at as we talked on a couple of occasions, we're kind of hit a little bit of a brick wall. I think Andrea's chiseled her way through it, and we'll be, getting beyond it first. It's just, there's a lot of process that goes on with this. So we've hit a bit of a wall with trying to work through one of the landowner issues, buy, sell, lease, et cetera. And there's quite a process for making sure we do it. Andrew and I tried to come up with a way to sort of fast track it and move it along, but turns out the state's got a process that they want us to use. So we're asking them to sort of put some pressure on that piece of the process and get it through. So.
And the lighting on the Maple City Trail that goes through the crescent, will that be demo or will that be recycled as part of this?
Those are details of the project that I can't speak to that. I mean, that there is a potential for cost savings to reutilize the same light fixtures. Obviously we will have to do new electrical, running new wires and things. So I don't know the dollar amount in terms of what you would save if you reutilize the actual fixture themselves, but we know we will have to do new electrical. And we've also been approached, the council in fact has been approached by some groups that are interested in providing changing lights on the Maple City Trail that our current fixtures don't, they are not compatible with that. So that's something that we'll have to take into consideration when we're looking at those options.
Okay, thanks.
Obviously, the quicker we get these bids out, the quicker we can secure materials and construction labor costs, the whole 9 yards, right?
Yes, but even sooner than that, Councilor, but really it's we get the bids out so I can come back with concrete numbers. So the questions Councilor Reese is asking are certainly not bounds. We're not trying to avoid them. It's just, I want to be able to talk concrete numbers instead of engineer estimates. Again, we've had some real good luck this year being lower. I don't want to tell you it's a $1.3 million bond. Only give us the approval for that tonight if it ends up having to be 2 or 3 when we get the bids back.
And to your point earlier, the sooner in the spring you can get those out there, there's more competition.
Yeah, listen, this for 2022, we're there. It's if we do it now, we won't get it done. I mean, I just don't think. I mean, there's no contractor of the quality with the capacity that we want that won't have their work fill as the year crosses over into 2022. That's the bottom line. So if we don't act and keep this moving now, we won't see this done in 2022. And yes, we can likely guarantee costs will even be more than that.
Everyone good?
Mhm.
Thank you, Andrea.
Thanks.
We do not have any public hearings tonight, so this brings us to personal appearance. At this time, anyone attending remotely would like to address council, please use the raise hand feature.
The first individual is registered as Michael Tooley, and I will unmute that individual now. It appears your line is open, sir.
Yes, thank you. Good evening. I'm Michael Tooley. I live at 214 Hamilton Street. Appreciate the opportunity to address City Council this evening. The first of my well-intentioned remarks speaks to the 2022 budget. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's my understanding that the modified budget defeated at the last meeting cannot be reconsidered unless one of the 4 no votes is willing to change their vote to yes. Personally, as I stated at the end of the last meeting, I'm not opposed to this modification as it improves on the proposed budget submitted to council by the city manager. However, if this modified budget is not reconsidered, it appears the main issue of contention is how many police officers to fund in the 2022 budget, 18 or 21. To those who supported the modified budget, which included funding for 20 police officers, looking at this in a simplistic manner, 20 police officers is closer to 21 than to 18. And so if not reconsidered, I would ask for funding of 21 police officers. In round numbers, increase the expense side by $100,000. reduce the reduction of the property tax levy by $100,000, which leaves, in my view, a still significant reduction of close to 8% in the property tax rate. I would prefer this funding option versus use of $100,000 of fund balance, which could be considered. So to summarize, please fund either 20 or 21 police officers in 2022. Next, I appreciate that the proposed City Council 2022 meeting calendar calls for 2 meetings every month, including July and August. This avoids special meetings in the summer, which would preclude the opportunity for the public to address council. Thank you.
I do not see any other hands raised.
Do we have any correspondence?
We do. We received a letter from the Office of the State Comptroller enclosing a certificate of the State Comptroller dated November 30th, 2021, approving the allocation of sales and compensating use taxes set forth in the agreement between the County of St. Lawrence and the City of Ogdensburg dated August 13th, 2020 and August 11th, 2020, which was attached to the agenda this evening.
Thank you. Next, we have our consent agenda that the claims is enumerated in general fund warrant number 22-2021 in the amount of $614,795.42. And library warrant number 22-2021 in the amount of $8,322.85. And capital fund warrant number 22-2021 in the amount of $0. And community development fund warrant number 22-2021 in the amount of $0. And community renewal fund warrant number 22-2021 in the amount of $0 as audited, and the same hereby are ordered paid. I so move.
Second.
Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Skelly,
Yes.
Counselor Dilaba,
Yes.
Counselor Fisher,
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy,
Yes.
Counselor Powers,
Yes.
Counselor Reese,
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly,
Yes.
approved.
We have 4 appointments tonight. I make a motion to reappoint Dean, is it Leacherman? Is that correct?
Yep.
To a 3-year term on the planning board, term to begin January 1st, 2022, and then December 31st, 2024. I so move.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Kathy, would you call the roll, please?
Counselor Dilaba,
Yes.
Counselor Fisher,
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy,
Yes.
Counselor Powers,
Yes.
Counselor Reese,
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly,
Yes.
Mayor Skelly,
Yes.
approved.
Next, I will make a motion to reappoint Christopher Lalone to a 3-year term on the zoning board. Term to begin January 1st, 2022, and then December 31st, 2024.
I'll second that.
I so move. Kathy, would you call the roll, please?
Counselor Fisher,
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy,
Yes.
Counselor Powers,
Yes.
Counselor Reese,
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly,
Yes.
Mayor Skelly,
Yes.
Counselor Dilaba,
Yes.
approved.
Next, I will make a motion to reappoint John Farren, Donald O'Shea, Nancy Skiff to 3-year terms on the Tree Commission, terms to begin December 13th, 2021, and then December 6th, 2024.
Second.
Kathy, would you call the roll, please?
Counselor Kennedy,
Yes.
Counselor Powers,
Yes.
Counselor Reese,
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly,
Yes.
Mayor Skelly,
Yes.
Counselor Dilaba,
Yes.
Counselor Fisher,
Yes.
approved.
And lastly, I will make a motion to appoint Amanda Gary, Scott Wilson, Teresa Pinkerton, Brooks Breno, John Tebow, and Greg Denny to 7-year terms on the Recreation Committee. Terms to begin December 13th, 2021, and then December 13th, 2028.
I'll second
Is that term spelled out somewhere as a requirement? In the charter or the administrative regulations?
that. Yes. Yes, Counselor, in the charter.
The charter. It's like a long term. Okay.
Kathy, would you call the roll, please?
Counselor Powers,
Yes.
Counselor Reese,
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly,
Yes.
Mayor Skelly,
Yes.
Counselor Dilaba,
Yes.
Counselor Fisher,
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy. Yes. Approved.
Our first item of business will be read by City Manager Stephen Jelly.
A resolution to establish the official newspapers for the publication of local law notices and other matters required by law to be published by the City of Ogdensburg for 2022.
I'll move that.
Second.
Discussion? Kathy, would you please
Does
call the roll?
the,
Yep.
So which ones?
all three?
All three.
Do we need three? Or are we paying for the same sandwich twice?
So, Counselor, we only use who we need to use. There's different deadlines for when we can submit. They have to be listed as official publications for us to use them for official notices, et cetera. But I think Kathy can give you, for instance, on the dates. If like tonight, for instance, if you want to do something, the deadlines are, go ahead.
So for instance, tomorrow, if I were to place a legal notice, my options would be with the water. If I get it in before noon on Tuesday, I could use the Ogdensburg Journal or North Country This Week. If I'm unable to get it in by noon, then my only option would be the Watertown Daily Times. It plays a very important role when we get to, for instance, calling special meetings, because when we need to make public hearing legal notices, sometimes I can only get it in the Watertown Daily Times because the deadline, North Country This Week has worked very hard to move their deadline. Their deadline used to be Monday, and they did move it so that we could try to, spread the wealth and use all the different papers. But we do not publish in more than one publication at a time.
And does the journal have the required approvals to be an official newspaper? Or do they have the permit that they need?
I can answer that if you want. Yes, they do, sir. They're actually part of the Watertown Daily Times. It's all the same official corporation. So because the Watertown Daily Times meets the requirements, their newspaper meets them as well.
Is it still Johnson newspapers?
Yes, sir.
So wouldn't it, if that's the case, what you just said, if we were using the Watertown Times, we printed it in the Journal, wouldn't it be the same thing?
Unfortunately, no. I'm sorry, Counselor. Unfortunately, no, because the Ogdensburg Journal goes to print earlier. Their publication comes out on only Thursday. They only publish on Thursday, where the Watertown Daily Times publishes every day except Monday.
What if we prioritize these, maybe an amendment that says, be it further resolved that priority publications will be in the following order? Because the North Country This Week, from my understanding, has the highest circulation and reached the most people in St. Lawrence County. I guess the Journal would be the next closest thing to a local paper, and then the Watertown last. Then that way, who's ever doing the legal notices would know to pick them in that order. I mean, if you have a date problem, fine, you skip the first one, you go to the second one. But I mean, that's my sentiment. I don't know if anybody else feels that way.
I believe North Country prints once a week.
That's correct, sir.
Journal prints once a week,
That's correct.
and the Watertown Times is 5 days a week,
6.
6 days.
The only day that they don't publish is
Saturday.
on Monday.
Monday.
North Country This Week is like, I don't know, circulation wise, it's probably, well, I don't know, 10 times more than the Journal. Not knocking the
No,
Journal.
no.
I'm just saying that if we're trying to reach as many people as we can. Would anybody be interested in that amendment?
I mean, I think that, I don't know, my personal opinion is just that we have 3 listed. Kathy picks the one that we can get out the soonest. I mean, I trust Kathy to make the decision to be like, okay, we need the information out as soon as possible, whichever one has the soonest next publication date that she can get it in, especially for things like meetings and things like that, because we just need to get the information out there so we can have the meeting. So I think whatever is her most feasible option, she should just go for.
I don't think we should make it more complicated. It works.
Is there a big cost difference? Is there a cost savings?
There is. I can beat that. North Country this week is the cheapest. And to Counselor Reish's point, that's a free publication for anyone who doesn't subscribe. They can
That's
pick it
nice.
up at any of
That's another
the
good-
locations around the area.
Yeah.
So he does make a very good point there. But the Watertown Daily Times fees for legal notices are by far the highest.
And you probably do prioritize North Country Now when it ever works.
Absolutely,
cost.
just as a cost savings alone. But to also, again, to Counselor Reish's comment, they do reach more people. In
I'd like
fact,
to
when we
make-
do employment notices, they're my first go-to. If I can get an employment notice in that publication, it reaches more people.
I'd like to make that motion based on, be it further resolved that the publication priority shall be 1, North Country this week, 2, the Journal, and 3, the Watertown Daily Times.
I think staff's doing that, but I would second that, for future.
I just think we save money and we reach the most people. I think that's what we're trying to do, so.
Any more discussion on
I
that?
agree with you. I think we're already doing it. I don't see the necessary to move this at all. So, to amend it. I think we'll trust Kathy.
I mean, I think it boils right down to priority. I mean, how quickly do we have to get a notice out? And in what fashion are we going to do it? The Journal and North Country Now aren't going to be able to turn it around in a blink of an eye. Recognizing that they're both, one of them's a free publication, but I don't see the need to prioritize if we're prioritizing. I'm pretty confident that the city clerk's doing that in the office in this very building.
I just feel better if it was, I mean, most governmental entities pick 1. We're trying to accommodate 3. So I think it's good to give some direction that way and save money and reach the biggest circulation. So
Just for practicality purposes, so everybody understands what we're doing too. We never use the Watertown Times unless we have to meet a demand because we've had a special meeting, or in case of employment notices, if I'm trying to get outside of the area a little bit more. I mean, and I'm not saying we don't use them for any other reason than we use the local, smaller business. North Country Now, the Journal just coming up online, small business in Ogdensburg. So, I mean, I think we've been trying to work with that as well, but we don't spend money on the higher ads ever, especially for, just meeting the legal notice requirement. We have used them a little bit with our job ads, just trying to reach the greatest audience. But I do think, again, it's
not centralized either. Like the clerk isn't the only one that places legal ads. You might have several different people placing legal ads, so it gives direction, better understanding.
Somewhere. Okay, any further discussion? Kathy, would you please call the roll on the amended?
This will be a roll call to amend, and
A
then
roll
we'll do on the,
Thank you.
okay. So this is to amend. Counselor Reish,
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly?
No.
Mayor Skelly?
Yes.
Counselor Dilaba?
Yes.
Counselor Fisher?
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy?
No.
Counselor Powers?
No.
Approved. So now we will vote as amended.
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly?
Yes.
Mayor Skelly?
Yes.
Counselor Dilaba?
Yes.
Counselor Fisher?
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy?
Yes.
Counselor Powers?
Yes.
Counselor Reish?
Yeah.
Approved.
Our next item of business will be read by City Comptroller Angela Gray.
Good evening. This is a resolution designating the official city bank depositories for 2022. Be it resolved that Community Bank NA, NBT Bank NA, Upstate National Bank, Key Bank of Northern New York NA, and New York Class through Public Trust Advisors LLC be designated as official depository of city funds for 2022.
I'll move that.
Oh, I'll second.
Are there any additions to this from last year?
No, there is not.
Do we need to prioritize this?
No, I don't
I'm
think
just
so.
Well, we may. Just give me a minute.
Yes.
So, Community Bank, NBT Bank, and Upstate National Bank and Key Bank all have offices here in Ogdensburg. And what is NICLAS?
That is a municipal, not class, New York class funds. They handle the municipal funds and they invest them on behalf of several municipalities.
We don't get much return on our investment, do we? I mean,
At this time in the market, no, we haven't. I mean, they're all very securely invested. There's not, it's more so for collateral, I think, in some respect, but there's very little. It's not like your typical portfolio where you're looking to make a big return.
how much do we have in each bank approximately? In other words, is it all in Community
lot.
Bank? Is it mostly in this? Is
The
it?
lion's share is in community bank.
Okay.
And the other half is with New York class.
So the other banks don't have any deposits for us?
Upstate National, I believe, but please don't quote me on it, has a small account. Key Bank, I do not believe that has any or a very small amount of funds in that right now. Key Bank, the city had used as a bank for some leases, and typically in order to do lending with the bank, you have to have an account with the bank. And then NBT Bank, I don't believe we have much, if anything, on deposit there right now.
Are all the interest rates at each facility, each institution about the same? As far as any monies that we have, obviously depending on what we have for a balance, it's going to change, but I mean, is the interest rate about the same?
Yeah, at my last check, just throughout the community, the interest rates are relatively the same. However, these particular funds that are in money markets within community bank, that's where most of them are, do not receive very much interest. The largest account is the general fund checking, which is non-interest bearing.
And you said 50% goes to NICLAS?
I believe, Counselor Reish, if I were to think about the balances in my head and just going from memory, there's a significant amount in the class funds, yes.
And that's in an effort to get a better return on our investment
That is correct.
than the banks?
Yes. And the reason why today it's half and half is we just received a very large deposit from New York State for our aids to municipalities that just about doubled the bank account balance. So that will be going out very shortly to pay some larger bills that are due this week. Usually I'd say that split is 1/3, 2/3, roughly speaking.
And there's a benefit to designating so many, even though they might not even have any, just in case you need them, or?
Don't tell me you want to prioritize banks.
No, I don't know enough about it. So.
Thank you, Angela.
Thank you.
Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Skelly,
Yes.
Counselor Dilaba,
Yes.
Counselor Fisher,
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy,
Yes.
Counselor Powers,
Yes.
Counselor Reish,
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly,
Yes.
approved.
Our next item of business will be read by City Manager Stephen Jelly.
A resolution designating the 2022 city council meeting dates. Be it resolved that the regular city council meetings for the city of Ogdensburg shall be on the second and fourth Monday of each month, except December, when regular council meetings shall be held on the first and second Mondays of the month. And unless such date is a legal holiday, in which event the meeting will be held on the next business day. The dates of the meetings are listed below. January 10, 24.
That's fine. I'll move that.
Seconded?
Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Counselor Dilaba,
Yes.
Counselor Fisher,
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy,
Yes.
Counselor Powers,
Yes.
Counselor Reish,
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly,
Yes.
Mayor Skelly,
Yes.
approved.
Our item of business will be read by City Clerk Kathy Jock.
It's a resolution to appoint a marriage officer for the city of Ogdensburg. Whereas section 11C1 of the New York Domestic Relation Law permits the city council of the city of Ogdensburg to appoint one or more marriage officers who shall have the authority to solemnize marriages within the city. And whereas the city council of the city of Ogdensburg adopted a local law establishing the position of city marriage officer under section AR 57 of the Ogdensburg Municipal Code.
That's fine. I'll move that.
I'll second that.
You got a problem with the resolution? We have the previous, we don't have the active council members on this.
I'm sorry, sir.
It's an old cover sheet.
My apologies. Thank you, sir.
Motion to amend?
We don't need to amend the cover sheet, I don't believe.
No? Okay.
I don't believe so,
I'm good
sir.
with that.
Thank you. I apologize.
No problem.
Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Counselor Fisher,
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy,
Yes.
Counselor Powers,
Yes.
Counselor Reese,
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly,
Yes.
Mayor Skelly,
Yes.
Counselor Dilaba,
Yes.
approved.
Our next item of business will be read by City Manager Steve Jelly.
A resolution to call for a public hearing and public notice regarding proposed changes to the city charter to affirm the city's responsibility for enforcement of delinquent city school district taxes.
I'll move that.
I'll second that. Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Counselor Kennedy,
Yes.
Counselor Powers,
Yes.
Counselor Reese,
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly,
Yes.
Mayor Skelly,
Yes.
Counselor Dilaba,
Yes.
Counselor Fisher,
Yes.
approved.
Our next item of business will be read by City Comptroller Angela Gray.
This is a resolution to issue a bond anticipation note in the amount of $1,305,000 to support the cash flow needs of the Maple City Trail Ready project. Project number SJ163. Whereas the
I'll move
city,
that.
I'll
We've
second
already
it.
had a presentation on it, right? Does anybody need anything with it?
I'll second.
My only question, Angela, is, so our bond rating, when I read that, and talk to them, part of that was our high amount of indebtedness was part of the reason, including getting close to the constitutional tax limit. So I hope we're being, with these three big projects, that we're not adding to that burden and that, a poor bond rating or something like that.
so a couple things that have happened in terms of the constitutional tax limit, the proposed budget on the council significantly lowers that. At that time that you are referring to, that bond rating, your constitutional tax limit was near the top. I think it was 90 plus. So that has dropped to 80 point something. So you're really on the cusp of being in a good zone deemed by the comptroller's office. So that's positive. At that point in time, you had very little fund balance. 2020, we increased that fund balance by $1.4 million. So that's another positive move. I do anticipate in 2021, we will be adding to that fund balance yet again. So great time to take this money and reinvest it into the city to do some of these projects. You have an $8 million grant here in total for all these projects with a 5% match, $415,000. And now you have the money to augment any shortfall of the grant, or certainly, the private business, we call it equity, but you have the fund balance to put back into the city and do some of these larger projects that you wouldn't have been able to with a low bond rating, being high to the constitutional tax limit and very little fund balance.
And we paid down some debt.
Yeah, we have paid down, the city has paid down, the number is not committed to memory, but a significant amount of debt in 2020, again in 2021. So some of that debt is maturing again in the next year or two. We paid off some larger leases in 2021. So there's a lot of favorable financial indicators where I do think this is prudent measure. And honestly, it's $1.3 million for this project, $8 million grant, but not all for this project. I understand that. But if you look at the total grant versus the total city cost, the grant is still paying a significant portion of these projects. Or anticipated to, I should say.
And just for some input on this, I wanted to, I don't know if everybody's noticed, but right across the river, the Hosmer project is, is moving along very nicely. It looks awesome. I'm grateful for the work they've done, but certainly Mother Nature has blessed them with a fall and early winter that's allowed them to make progress. It's really looking great over there. So again, I want to emphasize this isn't your final approval. We want to get to bids, get that back, bring you the courses of action. But I think this is exactly the type of project that I think we have been talking about, being able to harness the money we've saved and the things that we're doing, making other difficult decisions to be able to to shore up and expand the future. So I certainly haven't been deal with anything else that has any sort of connotation of long-term borrowing, but at this juncture, I'm firmly behind this. No time is there ever going to be the investment, federal funds. Sometimes good things come from bad weather events, and this is one of those. So I believe we'll have the same sort of comprehensive. We'll have a comprehensive kind of where we are in decision briefing for the next council meeting on the other project on the waterfront. But these from my perspective are the priorities, these and the other waterfront parcels that we're working on for cleanup. I mean, this is where the city sees its rebirth. And again, I'm just the federal government didn't give the private project owners the same deal they gave us. There's a pretty significant, there's a 50%, 45. And they have to contribute 45% to their project. So, there's a substantial private investment being made over there at the Hosmer project. So thank you for your consideration.
Okay. Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Counselor Powers,
Yes.
Counselor Reese,
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly,
Yes.
Mayor Skelly,
Yes.
Counselor Dilaba,
Yes.
Counselor Fisher,
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy,
Yes.
approved.
Our next item of business will be read by City Manager Stephen Jelly.
A resolution declaring the seeker notice of intent to serve as lead agency for adoption of the City of Ogdensburg's comprehensive development plan. Whereas the City of Ogdensburg is developing a comprehensive development plan, and whereas pursuant to the notice annexed hereto, in accordance with the provisions of 6 NY-CRR Part 617, the City Council of the City of Ogdensburg intends to serve as lead agency for the seeker review of this type 1 action, and in this capacity will determine if the proposed action will have a significant effect on the environment, and whereas the lead agency will undertake a coordinated review of this action. Now, therefore be it resolved that the City of Ogdensburg City Council hereby designates its intention to serve as lead agency for the seeker coordinated review of this type 1 action, and will circulate the lead agency notice, a PDF of the draft comprehensive development plan, along with a link to the city website wherein the draft comprehensive development plan is located to all involved and interested agencies, who shall be given 30 days from the mailing of the lead agency notice to challenge the City Council's lead agency designation.
I'll move that.
I'll second.
Is the list that's attached, is that like hand chosen or?
We reached out to the agencies that we thought would most potentially be interested in making comment. Which ultimately is our neighboring jurisdictions and oversight entities.
How about DOT?
We can send it tomorrow. Yes, sir, we can send it tomorrow.
Kathy, would you please call the roll?
I'm sorry. One quick, now, did we receive an updated version of the comprehensive development plan that initially came out? And no slight to the author, I'm grateful for it, but there were some grammatical errors and some opinions that were in there more than there were actual, maneuvers to move forward. And I'd like to, before that goes out, I'd like to see it.
Oh, yeah. Okay, absolutely. We'll send it, Counselor. We've also got a couple products that have got to complete. I've got one just about done, and we've got one more to finish up that were the comments from the county, but we'll send you the draft as it is.
So the one we're sending, we'll send,
You'll see
we'll
it
all have a
first.
chance to review it.
You'll see it first, yes.
Thank you.
No, but I would say no substantive changes.
No. I'm talking more grammatical error and
Yeah, just
removal
I just want to be clear.
opinion more than it is actual fact-based.
Right. I'll just say we didn't make any substantive changes to the plan, but I'll
I
let you,
understand.
yeah, I'll let you judge what was that.
Right.
Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Counselor Reese,
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly,
Yes.
Mayor Skelly,
Yes.
Counselor Dilaba,
Yes.
Counselor Fisher,
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy,
Yes.
Counselor Powers,
Yes.
approved.
Our next item of business is a resolution regarding Ogdensburg Correctional Facility. Would Counselor Scamperly or Counselor Powers like to read that?
Go ahead, Dan.
All right. A resolution requesting New York State to reverse the decision to close Ogdensburg Correctional Facility. Whereas in the late 1980s, New York State faced a major crisis with severe prison overcrowding across New York State. And whereas state officials faced major opposition from residents of New York City and Long Island, who protested plans to locate prisons in their regions of the state. And whereas at the time, when most communities flatly refused to accept a prison in their midst, the residents of Ogdensburg offered to assist the state of New York in their time of need and accepted a prison on the grounds of St. Lawrence Psychiatric Center, which became Ogdensburg Correctional Facility. And whereas for almost 40 years, New York has seen the wisdom of that decision by enjoying the benefits of a well-run facility where employees and inmates are safer than those in downstate facilities. And whereas the prisons in northern New York have demonstrated they are less costly to operate than downstate prisons, resulting in fewer injuries to staff and inmates, are more efficient in terms of operations, and a cost-effective way to provide this important service to the people of the state of New York. And whereas the North Country has already seen the impact of the New York State Department of Corrections and Community Supervision's previous closure decisions. And whereas these decisions, like the current proposal, have been characterized by a complete lack of planning for the reuse of facilities and the impact on local communities. And whereas, as of this time, the following facilities have already been closed in the North Country: Camp Gabriel's in 2009, Chattagay Correctional Facility in 2014, Lion Mountain Correctional Facility in 2011, Clinton County Correctional Facility Annex in 2021, Watertown Correctional Facility in 2021. And whereas not one of these facilities has been repurposed, developed, or sold, and they remain vacant and deteriorating, along with over 500,000 square feet of vacant New York State-owned buildings at the St. Lawrence Psychiatric Center in Ogdensburg. And whereas collectively these facilities and this space add no value to the communities, to the state of New York, or to the residents. And whereas it is unacceptable for New York State to close successful facilities in our region while failing to plan for their reuse like it has for decades with the facilities it has already closed. Now therefore be it resolved that the Ogdensburg City Council requests that the state of New York reverse its decision to close the Ogdensburg Correctional Facility. And be it further resolved that copies of this resolution be forwarded to Senator Patricia Ritchie, Assemblyman Mark Walczyk, Governor Kathy Hochul, Senate Majority Leader Andrea Stewart Cousins, Assembly Speaker Carl Heston, and New York State Department of Corrections Acting Commissioner Anthony Antonuzzi.
Sorry, I'm having trouble hearing you.
Alexa,
No, that's a
I
very,
so move.
I'll second that. It's a very good resolution. Appreciate it.
Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Counselor Scamperly,
Yes.
Mayor Skelly,
Yes.
Counselor Dilaba,
Yes.
Counselor Fisher,
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy,
Yes.
Counselor Powers,
Yes.
Counselor Reese,
Yes.
approved.
Our next item of business will be read by City Manager Stephen Jelly.
A resolution to adopt the 2022 preliminary budget. Therefore, be it resolved that the city of Ogdensburg adopts the 2022 preliminary budget. And be it further resolved that the following rates shall be in effect for 2022. The city real property tax rate for 2022 shall be $15.88 per $1,000 of assessed valuation.
And does this resolution and the attached changes address the water?
No, sir, their water rates will be addressed in the next two resolutions.
No,
Do we have to vote on these adjustments? Oh, I'm sorry. Were you still going, Jeff?
like on page, well, whatever page it is, 3 or 4 here. Metered water sales remove 5%, unmetered remove 5%.
Those are all your worksheets counseled together for the successive motions.
Those are the same, I believe, on the second.
Yes, it's just mayor point of order. Someone needs to introduce this with the discussion going on.
I'll make a motion to introduce this.
Second?
Now, so now just for the process, the preliminary budget is in front of you now for final approval. If there are intended modifications or modifications that want to be introduced, now would be the time. Staff has submitted a list. Sorry, the print is kind of small on this one. Staff has submitted a list of the modifications, largely errors and omissions. They do not impact the tax rate or needing more money. The revenues offset the expenses. So that would be the first item I'd ask a member of council to introduce and discuss and vote.
I'll move that.
I'll second that.
Call the roll.
Kathy, we'll call the roll. I'm trying to read it.
On what? I'm sorry, what? I was looking at the sheets.
It's the same thing we did last time, just that here's the
To accept the
budget.
new amended budget?
Yeah, here's the amendments.
I mean, I don't, why are we doing this again?
Well, this,
You have to, because
Because they're all
the other's dead.
technical amendments and
But to be able to discuss. All right, I got it.
Kathy, would you call the roll, please?
So this is a motion to amend. Mayor Skelly,
Yes.
Counselor Dilaba,
Yes.
Counselor Fisher,
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy.
So this is just talking about amendments. There's no bearing on actually voting for a budget, correct?
you're voting now to accept the changes that I put in front of you that are largely
We
error.
still have the option to make more changes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, then yes.
You're not voting on the final budget.
Okay, that's what I just wanted to make sure I clarified.
Counselor Kennedy,
Yeah.
Counselor Powers,
Yes.
Counselor Reese,
yes.
Counselor Scamperly,
Yes.
approved.
So these amendments then removes the proposed 5% increase in the water fund.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
So,
And as far as the school resource officer,
School resource officer remains in the budget.
okay, thank you for clarifying. I'd make a motion to, I like it the way it is. I would make a motion to add 1 police officer and go to 19.
I'd like to see us at least back to the 2 additional officers that we talked about last week to be on patrol. And I see Chief Kearns here, and I don't know if he'd like to speak to the shift structure with or without the officers, but I'd love to hear it.
Mayor, just to keep us on track, point of order, there's a motion on the floor. Need a second on that to continue discussion.
Keep the SRO in there?
No.
SRO was in there, sir. The SRO was in, the SRO did not get removed from the budget.
We have a motion to add 1 police officer.
I would like to do 2.
Well, you got the SRO was left in there and he's 1 is 2.
Yeah, we need a second.
I'll second it.
So you have a second on the floor now to add 1 police officer to.
1 police officer and the SRO. Technically 2, right?
No. It's,
The SRO was in the preliminary budget, still in the preliminary
Yeah,
budget.
so it'd be 19 police officers.
Is it
So
18 or 19?
The preliminary budget funds 18 uniform positions, which includes the SRO. So you have a motion on the floor now to add one to that, which would bring your total uniform strength to 19.
One of which is an SRO.
No, yes, sir.
So total 19, that includes the SRO.
Yes, sir.
We
I'd
had-
move to move it to with an SRO, recognizing the staffing structure at minimum 21.
With the SRO.
That includes the SRO. Quite frankly, it's still, you know, I'm willing to come to 21 with the SRO, and that still leaves him a man down and
From what he asked for.
from what he asked for.
I'll second that. But do we need to vote on getting the 19 first?
Yes.
You have a motion and a second on the floor to add, excuse me, one additional officer. So unless,
Well, I can ask for an amendment. I mean, isn't this a discussion? I mean, do we have to vote on each and every?
no, certainly you can have the discussion. It's just that your current motion on the floor is for one. So if the intent is to modify that.
So we have a motion on the floor made by Counselor Reach to add one police officer, which was seconded by Counselor Fisher. So technically, we should vote on that motion because it has a second. And then based on the
Secure that
result,
job right now.
if council wishes to simply discuss things, then I guess you would just do discussion without making a motion until after the discussion. But at this point in time, we have a motion and a second on the floor to add one police officer. And if I understood correctly, Counselor Powers made a motion that Counselor Scamperly seconded to be at 21 officers with the SRO. Is that correct, sir?
That's correct. That's where we were last week, I believe, with the amendments that we voted on originally.
Well, the amendment last week didn't have an SRO on the second.
We were going with 20 total.
You're going to 20 patrol officers without an SRO, without funding for an SRO. Well, school district funds portion of it, but there was no SRO in the 12-2 amendment.
Well, then we were only going to 19.
So again, for clarification, I know it seems confusing. We're talking kind of back and forth, but the preliminary budget had 18 officers funded, included the SRO. So had we removed it, had the amendment passed last meeting to remove it, then the police force would have been at 17 positions. Had you added to, it would have given you 19 because the item was in there to remove the SRO. So that item is no longer on there. So the preliminary budget currently now has you at 18 officers, one of which will be the student resource officer. So my recommendation to council would be you have a motion on the floor for one. Vote on that. Council certainly can continue to ask for other amendments, including adding more officers or other positions, et cetera.
Call the question.
I like 20 total.
Kathy, would you please call the roll?
20 total, including the SRO.
I agree. I mean,
It's a better compromise.
I think that's an actual compromise.
Whether it's 19 and 1 or 20, however you guys want to do it, but let's go 20 total.
I agree.
You don't think so?
You're talking $500,000.
That's what we voted on
A
last
lot
week.
more than that in overtime.
That's what
We
we,
voted that last week.
No.
John, you said 20 last week, right?
I did, and they voted it down, so I'm proposing 19 now.
Well, we voted for the amendments and then we voted against the budget because we wanted more. I mean,
Yeah.
so basically, we're accepting defeat, or at least that's the way I'm looking at my vote tonight, is if we vote for what Bill just said,
20,
which
it's
is
an
bringing it back.
Oh, either go, either 20 police officers or 19 and an SRO.
And I think that's the compromise.
Last week was 19. There was no SRO. We were voting for 2. We were 19 last week.
Oh, that way, so we're 17 plus no
No.
SRO.
Now you're going to be 19. If we go, if you go any more than one, you're going to be taken from the fund balance, which has been done before, and
Or
I
you
feel
could
it's been a mistake.
do as Mike Tooley suggested, and just lower the reduction of the tax rate slightly.
We will be taking from the fund balance, whether we fund 1, 2, 5, or 10. The budget currently is with the amendments that staff's asked for, those were 0. So we're just, if you, any that we add, we'll take from the fund balance. I think Councilor Reich's motion included the amount of roughly 74,000. So again, just multiply that number by the number of officers.
So Kathy, would you call the roll, please?
So this is a motion to amend to add 1 police officer that was introduced by Councilor Reish and seconded by
So
Councilor
are
Fisher.
we actually going to send the SRO to the school based on this? If we have an allocated SRO?
That's a whole nother discussion. Let's vote and then we can talk about that. 'Cause I've gotten a little bit of feedback, but I'm not really clear where it's at either.
I don't necessarily concur or agree with how we're doing this right now. I mean, this should be a blanket discussion going forward. We've got 2 hot button items here, right? Police department, fire department. Those are the 2 bones of contention here in this budget. Hang on, let me finish. But by going forward, we can hash this out without having to go motion by motion by motion.
Well, I think, Councilor, what you can do now is you can do just what you're doing, which is vote
But
for
we
it.
do have motions on the floor.
Yeah, you can, again, otherwise, the motion by the individuals that made it could withdraw it, and you could change the motion. Otherwise, bring finality to what you have to, and then continue on.
Understood. All right.
I mean, you have your discussion, regardless of what you do now, but if you can strike, an agreement amongst yourselves, that's the way to do it. Did the mayor call the roll?
He asked me to, but then there was a question.
Okay.
So you wish for me to proceed now? So
Please.
this is a motion to amend to add 1 police officer. Councilor Dilaba?
Add 1.
For now.
For now,
All right,
okay.
yes. Okay. Yes.
Councilor Fisher?
Yes.
Councilor Kennedy?
Yes.
Councilor Powers?
No.
Councilor Reish?
Yes.
Councilor Scamperly?
Yes.
Mayor Skelly?
Yes.
Approved.
So right now, tonight, we've added a school resource officer and 1 uniformed police officer for the streets.
So is that?
No.
No, sir, you've added
No.
1 police officer to the street. The preliminary budget has the school resource officer.
But we
So-
currently do not.
Then we budgeted
Yes.
for.
So that would be currently a hire or no?
It's under current staffing would not be a hire. We would use somebody internal if we don't have a position.
We're going to be responsible for their health insurance and retirement.
So the answer right now is if, without the additional officers, we wouldn't be hiring because we have that number of staff. However, we have 1 that we're just waiting for word any day to be being disability retired. So that would give us the vacancy. We thought we'd know by now. We should hear any day that will be approved. So ultimately we will be hiring to do that. At the moment, I have the number of people that the budget would call for, but we'll have a vacancy, we'll hire somebody.
So I would like to look at it that we budgeted for a school resource officer.
The school
But-
how much
but-
does the school pay for the SRO?
Excuse me. I think it's
I
kind of
just asked a question.
well, it's a moot point because I think
No, it's not a moot point.
the county just passed a resolution to put a SRO out there, just as we sit here.
Okay.
So I'm just,
Good
we
point.
can beat it to death if you want.
I'm sorry, Steve, what did you say?
They passed on their agenda, they had a resolution to fund a SRO for City of Ogdensburg, and they did. They passed it just now.
So that takes a burden off of our departments. It was.
That's
one.
my understanding.
It was 1, and then there was discussions about spreading it out amongst 2 or 3. So that takes a burden off of our department to a certain extent.
Well, I think the county's action at this point, I would say just frees the school district to make a decision. I think they sent a very clear definitive email to all of you, discussing that they would like to continue the discussion further, and certainly their preference would be to use the city. So I appreciate the county's passed it. I think the school district wants to know what their options are. They'll make a decision. So.
Well, and we can't obviously base that off until we hear from the school district.
Well, yes. And
well, we get very little from the county. It seems like that's a pretty good step in the right direction.
It's my understanding that it's it's not a good deal for the school. And I don't know if the school wants it, but
I'm just saying, it's a uniformed police officer. What is the difference? Are they any less than ours?
I don't think it even matters for a discussion right now, actually.
Our preliminary budget calls for it.
I'd also,
What other discussions have we had with the school district as of late, since last week? None.
I talked to a board member who,
Aren't we still under contract with the school district?
We are. And I think it's prudent. Again, I think the superintendent's email clearly is backed up by the school board. I think, they sent us the definitive correspondence. They want to communicate with us on this topic. So I think it would be in our interest to communicate. Let's communicate with them. Myself, the superintendent, a couple of you, a couple of their board members, let's communicate. I think there are opinions on this board of how we'd like to see it go, how we'd like the service delivered. I think those are all good things that they should know. It is ultimately their decision, but I think we have the public safety experts on our staff. So I think that that input and some of the suggestions have been made by all of you are certainly valid. I think Councilor Fisher's point is valid for us to consider as well. So I think this lets the school board know they have options. It lets this council make their concerns, their wishes known to the school board. I think some face-to-face discussion about that would be better. Quite honestly, I think there's been some stuff lost in translation. I'll accept some responsibility for a portion of that. I think we have to be definitive. So I think if the council's intention tonight is if your intent is to support it, it's in the preliminary budget. So there it is. It's not but I think ultimately it'll be their decision whether they use our resources or the county. So.
yeah, and there's a third option too with retired officers.
No, absolutely. And I mean, that's something
That's a great option.
something you telegraphed. And I think that, it appeared the superintendent was not closed-minded to that idea. Excuse me, we had luckily an unfounded incident last week. But it kind of demonstrates the point that you all talked about, which is what makes one building more important than the other building, et cetera. At least it's worth the discussion of how are we covering it? What will we do when there's threats like that? What are we doing on an everyday basis? I mean, I think it's a good discussion, and I don't think there's any better group to discuss it than the people elected by the city to serve the city government, who has the responsibility to protect and manage public safety, and then the people who are elected by the people to run the school district. I don't think anything bad can come from a discussion. If we decide to go our separate ways, if we decide that one agency is better for the other, I think everybody's been served by that discussion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the budget. with
Don't
the
I still have a
amendments.
motion out there?
You didn't have a second, did you?
Yes.
Did you? Okay.
So, based on Mike's proposed amendment, I second it. And what I said before, I'd like to hear from the chief. The chief runs a station. I think we're not doing due diligence if we don't at least hear about the department structure and expectations with what we're looking at right here that we just voted on. And then we can talk about, I'm throwing it out there. I mean, obviously you're the chairman, Mike, but call him up or not. But I would like to hear from the chief. I think it's important that we all hear before we move Mike's.
I think the chief did his presentation, and for me, it's money. The money dictates the number of staff throughout the whole city, and we're dealing with $1.5 million less dollars in sales tax, $500,000 less in property tax, $2 million off in our budget. It's a tough year, and I think in the future, I think if we start working on growing this city and additional revenues from that, and then these other issues work themselves out with the county, I think we'll put our departments back together with more people in the future, but it's, you know, there's $2 million less.
So do you think it's deficient right now?
Well, I'd like to see more. I'd like to see more of everyone, but that's not our size. If we're,
I'm
well,
just
we'd be a
asking
larger
here
city,
from-
we'd be a larger, if we grow the city, that's always been the.
That's gotta be the objective. I think we're all in agreement.
We gotta grow the city,
needs to grow. No,
so,
I'm with you.
you know,
But I'm just saying, I'd like to hear from the chief and see how it's gonna go. There's some pretty important things.
well,
We're hearing from citizens. They want to see the police officers.
well, we've let emotions or just our wants control us for decades. And where was it? I mean, you do believe that financial restructuring board was correct when they said bankruptcy 2023. Did you believe, you did not believe that? You did not believe that report?
I don't see it.
You asked for that report, but you didn't
We
believe
were
it.
paying back
Point of order.
debt, everything.
Okay,
I mean, we're doing
Okay.
good. And I still saw problems, but we're addressing them.
Can we vote on Mike's?
yes.
But I don't even know what it was.
Kathy, could you restate the amendment or the motion on the floor, please?
Yes, Counselor Powers made a motion to amend the preliminary budget to be at 21 police officers with the SRO, and it was seconded by Counselor Scamperly.
My intent with that was to bring it to the 20 that was discussed last week to include the SRO. If you can remember last week, I had asked for 22 to meet his demand for staffing in a perfect world, which is an imperfect world. And then to have the SRO.
I don't think that was.
That was my intent. And I apologize for the redundant question, but he's currently sitting at how many right now with?
With the preliminary budget, 18 was dedicated. With the amendment, now there's 19. So it would be easier on the motion. How many do you want to increase beyond 19?
Well, they already made a motion.
So it'd be 2 more.
Can I ask a
Correct.
question?
Just to clarify, it would
But
be 2
my
more.
question is, where's he sitting right now with the pending disability retirement? Full staff. I mean, whether they're in house or out on long-term sick, whatever the case may be, where is he right now?
So the preliminary budget would fund everybody that he has now, 18 positions who's out, correct?
Okay.
The one that was just approved would be a hire, Mark, right? The one position would be a hire. Yep.
So so the SRO is budgeted and that's budgeted as revenue because
Yes, ma'am.
if they don't use us, do we lose the SRO position? So they would be down another officer.
Yes, ma'am.
So
So
that
that,
directly, it's $96,000 worth of revenue that we're talking.
right.
No, taken in, you pay it out.
At the end of the day,
Right,
it's offsetting, but
it's
yes,
not coming out of,
correct. It would be one less officer.
right. So that, I think minimally we have to be at 20.
That was,
I'm willing to pull my motion, by the way, if we want to discuss this and move forward without any.
that would have been
along the way.
Bill's, right? So was Bill one less than what Mike is proposing, or was Bill the same?
I thought it was
He was at 20.
18 last week and then we're going to 20.
Just to keep it simple for yourselves, let's say we're at 19 funded officers right now. If you vote on the budget now,
Addition of one.
correct, yes, ma'am. If you vote for the budget right now, you'd be approving 19
We voted 20
officers.
last week.
Yes.
Yes, we did.
So,
But we're down back to 18.
We're at
So-
19.
so
Now we're
my-
at 19 right now.
yeah.
My amendment calls
With an
for
SRO.
21
Mhm.
to include the SRO,
But if we don't,
No,
which would be 20
Well, if we don't, this.
alternate.
Then we can hire another cop.
You're saying 21 with the SRO.
Yes, sir.
So we'd have to add 2.
Right. Yep. Yes.
so
Can we take a roll on that?
So right now we're at 19 with an
Kathy,
SRO.
Was there any other, I mean, you got to let everybody
I'm fine with that.
talk if they want. I don't know if anybody else is.
19 with an SRO
That's where we were last week.
or 19 included.
We just approved 19.
we just, 19 includes the SRO.
Now we're looking for 21 to include the SRO.
so we're looking at 21.
To give him 20 in the field.
Right, just for clarification, again, I'll just keep it on here. You've approved 19. There's 18 were proposed by myself in the preliminary budget. You've approved an amendment thus far that would raise it to 19. It would just be simpler if the motion included how many additional officers you intend to add beyond 19.
Two.
You want 21 is your motion.
Yes.
And that includes the SRO. And then if the school district does not choose to use the city of Ogdensburg for that, that would drop us down to 20 positions. Correct? That's my understanding of that.
So the SRO is kind of like a float.
So the
Good question,
SRO would
actually.
be,
It's a good question. I'm good with that.
so the SRO would technically, we would be, if the school chooses not to go with the city of Ogdensburg, then we would be at 20 officers.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
With Mike's resolution.
With Mike's resolution or amendment.
Amendment.
So if it puts us at, we vote to fund the SRO and then get us to 21. And then if we don't use the SRO, then we're only at 20 officers because we're not going to fund that position.
That's correct.
That's funded by the school district.
Yes, ma'am, absolutely correct. If we could simplify it, if Counselor Powers, if you could withdraw your motion, and then if the simple motion could just be made so it's clear to everybody how many positions you're proposing to add, it'll just make everything run
So
smoother.
we would,
Fine, he said 21.
Well, I'm the maker of the motion.
right.
He has a motion for 21.
Okay.
So the-
As long as you're good.
It's actually,
I understand it.
Okay.
So I feel like we're talking in a giant circle and I just want to make sure I'm fully understanding.
Counselor Kennedy, if I may be
Please.
able to
That would be
clarify.
fantastic, Kathy.
Okay, so we have a motion from Counselor Powers to be at 20, to amend the budget, preliminary budget, to be at 21 officers, which would include the SRO, which in essence is 2 additional officers.
Correct, which is the 2.
And it was seconded by Counselor Scamperly.
Yes.
Which would bring our total addition for the evening, if that passes, it would increase us by 3. You already have 1 passed. Ultimately, the motion now would increase it by 2 more, which would be a total of 3.
So Chief Kearns in his presentation asked for 21 in the field. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And so,
Did that 21 include the SRO? No. So the 20, okay.
so right now, we're at
Right.
18 in the field. And Powers is saying, let's bring it to 20 in the field, which is still short than what he asked for.
Still shorting him.
And that was basically what we voted on last week, where we had 4 votes supporting it. And then until the budget was finally voted on it, and we voted no. Correct.
No, because I proposed to add 2,
Yes,
which would have been to 20. He's looking at 21.
only with the SRO. The SRO is a wash.
The SRO, if
It's
we don't,
not.
No,
though,
it's 20.
because once you
What
hire
we
them-
voted on was 20,
You
including
own
the
them.
SRO.
You're still paying,
That's what we
you're
voted
seeing
on.
you're paying his health insurance. So he's an employee.
It's a
But
good
if
deal.
the,
I get
if the
it. I
school
know
system
this.
stops paying,
it's on
then he's still
affordable.
yours.
He's paying a portion. Paying a good portion.
It's on affordable.
Paying them 100.
To include overtime.
Okay, Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Counselor Fisher,
No.
Counselor Kennedy,
yes.
Counselor Powers,
Yes.
Counselor Reese,
No,
Counselor Scamperly,
Yes.
Mayor Skelly,
No.
Counselor Dilaba,
No.
defeated.
I'd like to make a motion to vote on the budget with the amended amendments to the proposal that we
I'll
approved.
second that.
The one. police officer.
So are you ready for me to call the roll?
Yes, please.
Okay, so just want to clarify.
So this is,
This would be,
we're voting on the budget now.
correct. This would be a roll call to vote on the budget as amended to include the spreadsheets of staff suggestions that was already approved and the addition of 1 police officer, which is already approved.
So if we don't use the SRO, we technically don't get to use that position, even though it's budgeted.
That's correct.
No more discussion to possibly get to 20? Meet in the middle somewhere? Forget it. You know what? You're moving it, move it.
You know,
It just
I'd like
becomes,
to,
it just
I'd like to
becomes,
amend it. to
it just
move to 20.
becomes political at this point. I mean,
Instead of 2 police officers, I'm gonna make an amendment right now, to add 1 more to what we got. That's it. And then we call it after that. Let's take a roll on that and at least give the department somebody.
I'll second
I
it.
mean,
I think we have a motion on the floor that's been seconded.
all right, let's roll on that. 1 more. That's what we voted on.
No.
That's where we were at last week.
We already have them.
And then we can vote on the budget.
I
I
think
think
you have
there's a
to,
motion on the floor to adopt the
Kathy, would you
budget.
call the roll to approve the budget?
That's the first motion on the floor, so we'll call the roll to approve the budget. Counselor Kennedy?
There's no discussion after this, after we vote.
nope,
Unfortunately, yes.
Counselor Powers?
no,
Counselor Reese?
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly?
Again, unfortunately, yes.
Mayor Skelly?
Yes.
Counselor Dilaba?
Yes.
Counselor Fisher?
yes.
Approved. Counselor Scamperly, did you wish to withdraw your motion because
I'd love to keep that motion
kind
on the
of a
table
moot
if I could. I didn't know if I could after we had
well,
voted on it.
it's a moot point at this
So-
point, but
Well,
it's up
I'd
to
like
you,
to
sir.
add one more police officer to that budget. And I believe Counselor Kennedy seconded it, if she's still with me on that.
Mhm.
And
Counselor, at this point would be a motion to modify the 2022 adopted budget.
okay,
That's how you-
so the motion would be to modify the 2022 adopted budget to add one more police officer for the field.
I'll second.
Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Counselor Powers?
You put him at 20?
Yes,
Yeah.
including the SRO. So it's meeting in the middle. It's a compromise to what we had.
No,
Counselor Reese?
No.
Counselor Scamperly?
Yes,
Mayor Skelly?
No.
Counselor Dilaba?
No.
Counselor Fisher?
No.
Counselor Kennedy?
Yes.
Denied.
okay.
Our next item of business will be read by Public Works Director Shane Brown.
A local law to allow for the changes to the Ogdensburg Municipal Code, Section 177, entitled sewer rates, as dictated by the adoption of the 2022 budget.
I'll move that.
I'll second that.
So can you tell us the exact change? What's the exact number for a residential house
For 6525.
or a unit? I guess it's called officially.
Second page. Right, second page.
It goes up to 465.25.
Okay, from?
Or something. Maybe 420 something, I think, maybe. 420 something.
So it's around a $40 increase. Okay.
Yes.
Just
That's the water rate.
5% increase.
5%.
Got a motion in there?
So I moved it and did somebody second
The
it?
mayor seconded it.
Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Counselor Reese?
No.
Counselor Scamperly?
Yes.
Mayor Skelly?
Yes.
Counselor Dilaba?
Yes.
Counselor Fisher?
yes,
Counselor Kennedy?
Yes.
Counselor Powers?
yes.
Approved.
Our last item of business will be read by Public Works Director Shane Brown.
A local law to allow the changes in the Ogdensburg Municipal Code, Section 215, Sections 39, 40, and 41, entitled water rates, as dictated by the adoption of the 2022 budget.
And my understanding was in the budget, it took the 5% increase out. So is this correct or incorrect?
No increase to the water budget.
Staying the same.
So these are the same numbers as last year.
Yes, sir.
So we don't really need.
Who
to-
moved it?
Water budget.
No one yet.
I'll move it.
No
Thank you, sir.
I'll second.
I'll second it.
So are there changes then?
I think there is some changes in the back of the type I'd like the water shut off and turn on and maybe possibly filling some swimming pools and stuff. Just some day-to-day operations, not metered rates and household rates.
Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Stand by. So the preliminary budget that I proposed had the water rate increasing 5%. So what is in front of you raises the water rates 5%.
So make a motion to table.
No, amend. I'll make a motion to, no,
Just
don't have to do anything.
or defeat.
Okay,
Just defeat.
let it go.
No. Make a motion to defeat this budget.
No, it's just
That
the
resolution.
If you don't want the rates to go up, you gotta vote.
So before we do this, if I'm not mistaken.
So why wouldn't we, you need
need to
these
vote.
numbers? I don't get it. I mean, why wouldn't we just table it?
Vote it down.
Because the preliminary budget already raised it 5%.
No, it didn't.
Vote it down.
No, it didn't. That's what we're trying to
No.
straighten out.
Right, so now you're just voting against the water increase that was proposed, and the water rates won't increase.
So.
That's what you need us to do?
It's the most efficient way to do it. Yeah.
Okay. So everybody vote no, because you've already voted not to increase the water rates.
You don't tell me how to vote.
Sometimes it is.
Sounds good.
Who's the author of this? DPW, I mean, you could probably pull it and bring it back another day, right?
We're not gonna raise them. This is.
But the most efficient way is to vote no, because
All right.
then
We held
it
the
just stays the way it
public
is.
hearing.
The thing, you held the public hearing, so.
So the
Oh,
reason that we were gonna increase it, if I'm not mistaken, according to the comptroller, was because we wanted to start building a capital fund project, knowing that we're gonna have an investment in front of us. And rather than pay high later, let's start to just build slowly now so that it doesn't hit the taxpayer, or not the taxpayer, but the user later.
Yes.
Right.
That's a good idea.
It is a good idea. We did that on the sewer plant.
We wanna vote for this, right?
No, because it's incorrect. It was supposed to reflect the changes in the budget. But we amended the budget to take the water rate increase out. We already voted to approve that, and that's already been taken out, so we don't want to increase it.
Okay.
This has to reflect what's in the budget.
We're going to be putting $20 to $30 million in that facility, correct?
Well, we're going to bring you a proposal this year, but you're going to be looking at 15 to 30 million, I'd say. Yep, somewhere in that span.
It is a good idea too. I pay a lot of water rate, my water rates, but it's nice to have some money when you're going to do a project like that. So is this amendment to raise or not?
No amendment. The resolution on the floor is to raise the tax rate or the water rates 5%.
So if we vote for it, it raises. If you turn it down, no raise.
Everybody vote their conscience.
Yes. They'll call you what you want to do.
But the point is, we already voted on the budget.
I have the budget approval. That's why this is separate, so you understand that you're.
I'll make a motion to table this because it's not in order with the budget that we just adopted. So I'd make a motion to table.
Do we have a second?
Can we do that without having a special meeting before the 15th? We have to vote on this
Yes.
because the 15th is our deadline.
Yeah, you have to establish.
No, the thing is, you're clouding it. It was already taken out of the budget at the beginning. So we're talking about something that doesn't exist
That's right.
or never will. So just call the vote and vote. You already did vote, but just to clean it up, let's move on. This is crazy.
Should this have been done before the?
I'm afraid. I'm afraid it's going to get passed.
I'm not really sure what's
It's
going.
not
So
gonna pass. It's already
But you already got 2 votes.
So
we already have a 22 budget. So it's done.
That's right. That's why
So
I tabled
this
it.
right here
We're
means
tabling it,
absolutely
voted on.
nothing unless you wanted to open the budget up and put it back in.
That's why I want to table it. It's out of order.
Nobody seconded it.
It's out of order.
Nobody seconded it.
Not yet. I'm still hopeful.
How long do we want? Do we wait?
Can't
I
wait
think
that
we're
long.
voting.
I think my time.
Let's just call the vote, Mike.
Call the
Let's
question.
just get rid of it.
You ready,
So
Mayor?
we're gonna vote on the water rates. Are we voting to raise them?
If you're voting for this resolution, you're raising them 5%.
That's right.
Are we ready?
Please call the roll again.
Counselor Scamperly,
No.
Mayor Skelly,
Yes.
Counselor Dilaba,
No.
Counselor Fisher,
No.
Counselor Kennedy,
No.
Counselor Powers,
No.
Counselor Reish,
No.
approved.
Can I stand on it?
You mean tonight?
Denied.
I'm sorry, denied. Yes, thank you.
It's a confusing night.
No, it's contagious.
So, and this brings us to old business. Does anyone have any old business?
Yeah, a couple items here. I asked this not too long ago, maybe it's great to tell me, related to the county arrears. Where are we with the county arrears? We still at about,
We are getting dollars to pay the 2021 balance due, and we are still in our 18 months, and we're sending the final, we're sending additional payment on the arrears amount that we owe, and then we have an obligation to clear that up in 18 months. So along with that check, we'll be sending them the final. We won't leave the 2021 year with any taxes open other than in arrears.
any idea how much that is?
No,
Safe to say pretty close to still about 500K.
for the arrears portion?
Thank you.
This brings us to new business. Does anyone have any new business?
I kind of want to just revolve back to the SRO, and you said we were gonna have in-person discussions. I just wanted to make sure. I'd like to be included when we have that meeting and meet with the school board and the superintendent. I'd just like to be included in that. And then my other, when will we see the rec commission get together, and hopefully we can start looking at some of the recommendations going forward, because during the budget process, there's a lot of talk of that. So I just didn't know when we can anticipate something coming out of their first meeting.
Yeah, I would think at this juncture, they'll meet shortly after the first of the year and have a brief to council prior to that. I wouldn't say before.
I would, are we still on new business?
Sure.
I'd like to see us, somehow explore the concept of having security cameras at important points throughout the city that would aid the police department with crime prevention on a number of fronts, whether they're, I don't know about traffic, but I think it'd be beneficial. We don't need to do anything tonight, but it'd be interesting to form a committee, maybe a temporary or ad hoc committee to look into the cost of it and to get feedback from the chief and the department, and to see how beneficial it would be and the costs associated with it. I've been reading quite a bit on it, and I really think it would be beneficial, and I'd like to see us look into that.
Okay, will do, sir.
I think it would be really beneficial. Also, too, is a way of, a lot of people have Ring doorbells and cameras, and if we had a police or city had a website or a way that people could, put their location down and their camera And then that would be a database for the police when there's a crime in an area. You could use that database to help solve it through all these cameras. Anyways, just an idea. Anything else?
No, I don't think so.
Items for discussion? Anyone?
Could we take that off the agenda?
Want it off?
Yeah.
Got both.
So-
Well, we already have new business. I don't know what items for discussion.
Technically, new business is supposed to be like a
A
resolution.
resolution.
And items for discussion is where we're supposed to discuss things like the need for cameras and things like that. So that's why new business is here and old business is here, to bring back resolutions or to propose a new resolution. Whereas
Well,
items for discussion are to talk about things like this, where we want to head with our future discussions. So that's.
you could do that under new business though.
We do it wrongfully, but it's just been,
We just adhere to
We
the
just
actual.
have been
agenda
doing it
where
for
it's
so
supposed to
long.
go. It wouldn't
it's technically not correct.
be an issue.
Okay.
And this brings us to citizen participation. At this time, anyone attending remotely would like to address council, please use the raise hand feature. You'll have 2 minutes.
The first individual is registered as Penny Sharrow, and I will unmute that individual now. It appears you're muted. It appears your line is open.
Okay, the discussion on the SRO officer and the police is totally convoluted. You're saying one thing, then you say another thing, then it was this one and that one. Can you please explain exactly what you just did? I mean, the SRO officer would have been nice to have had out there last week when we had this little lockdown thing, but maybe that's not important to the people that are sitting there. I don't know. The week before the last meeting, Mr. Reich had said something about 20 officers. I don't recall him mentioning that the SRO officer was inclusive in that 20. I think 20 in the field would show our trust in our police department. And the SRO officer, to my knowledge, the school paid the 100% of the salary and the benefits. So I don't know why we couldn't have 20 officers in the field. And the SRO officer, if they take them, fine. If not, then we don't hire that extra person. So we're giving them at least 2 of the 3 that they asked for. And maybe the citizens should be asked about this instead of you people all sitting there. I'm sure you've had some input about this, about how we feel safe or don't feel safe. And maybe the citizens should be asked about this somehow, some way. I don't understand. Can someone please, I know it's not question and answer, but explain what you did. You're hiring 19, and if the school doesn't take the SRO officer, the police department's left at 18 with nobody? Is that what happened, or what happened here?
That's correct, Penny.
We,
Well, I think that's a shame. That's an absolute shame.
I agree.
That's
Well,
a shame.
we
Last week you said 20, John, and it didn't even talk about the SRO officer. Look at the notes. That wasn't even talking about the SRO officer.
in my motion to add 2 positions to the police department was defeated. So tonight I introduced add 1 police officer.
And so why change it now when people are coming together? People were trying to come together, meet and mediate and come together.
So
Why change it now? Jeepers. No, you changed. I just don't get it, you guys. I really don't get it. Maybe it's because the mayor called me ignorant the other day. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Penny.
The next individual is registered as Michael Tooley, and I will unmute that individual now. It appears your line is open.
Yes, thank you, Mike Tooley again. I just want to provide some additional background on your discussion on depository banks. As I'm sure you know, municipalities are limited in the ways that they can invest monies. You cannot invest monies in the market, stocks or bonds, just because there's too much risk. And so many years ago, New York class was established to provide a pooled investment opportunity for municipalities across the state in an effort to protect their monies, but to get as much return from investments as they could. As Angela pointed out, the monies in class are fully collateralized, fully protected. Also, liquid monies so that, if you have monies invested, you need to draw monies out tomorrow to pay some bills, you can do that. So it's very important that the city be involved, I think, with the class program. And then in terms of having many banks listed as potential depository banks, while you might not be looking at this next year because of the financial markets as it relates to interest, I mean, there may come a day where interest becomes attractive enough where you do some cash flow and maybe CDs become an option again, and you want to be able to bid, have banks bid the rates to keep your options open for competitiveness. So that's just one of the reasons, also on the borrowing side too with your band. So just wanted to offer that input. Thank you.
I do not see any other hands raised.
We do not have a need for executive session tonight at this
We
time.
actually, I'd like to make a motion for executive session. I guess it'd be possible litigation, so if I could have a second on that, I'd like to just have a discussion.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, I'll listen. I don't know where to go. Coming back to vote on it or?
No,
Huh?
no,
So we're
There'll
gonna
be no
adjourn then?
action.
I don't think so.
Okay, I'll make a motion to adjourn for executive session.
We didn't
John
make the
has-
motion to go into executive
Just fall
session.
within the confines of executive session. I mean, it's related to litigation.
Did someone second Counselor Reese's motion?
I did.
Thank you, sir.
I'm confident in this.
Haven't had it come from floor, so we go.
Only 9 things. Are we get the vote on that?
Would you like me to call the roll to go to executive session?
Yes, please.
Mayor Skelly,
Yes.
Counselor Dilaba,
Yes.
Counselor Fisher,
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy,
Yes.
Counselor Powers,
Yes.
Counselor Reese,
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly,
Yes.
approved.
And then you're gonna make the announcement that there's gonna be nothing coming out of executive session.
There'll be no action.
Right, so they have to make a motion to adjourn.
Oh.
That way it works, right?
I'll make a motion to adjourn after
And
the
somebody second.
directly after the
Thank you.
executive session.
Aye.
Aye.